It's great to be here in Da Nang and see a lot of the electricity around Web3 and blockchain. So a little bit about myself. So I was part of the founding team and early employee of HashKey Group, which you'll learn a lot more about. HashKey Group is very well known in Asia for being one of the largest and most well-known companies that's operating licensed exchanges, licensed asset management companies, and you'll learn a lot more. Today, the focus is really to share some of the lessons that we've learned about what it means to operate, a licensed exchange in cities and regions that actually have, a regulatory regime around digital assets. So, a little bit of information about HashKey. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. We are, as I mentioned, one of Asia's largest licensed, and globally licensed digital asset financial services firms. Our headquarters are in Hong Kong, where we currently operate Hong Kong's largest licensed digital asset exchange, licensed by the SFC. I saw that process from back in 2018 to the grant of the license back in 2021 and 2022. So it's been really interesting to see kind of how Hong Kong has developed as a Web3 center in Asia. HashKey also is licensed for custody, licensed for asset management, and across both Hong Kong and Singapore. More recently, we've been expanding more to the west. So HashKey has also more recently been licensed under VARA in Dubai, and also we are licensed in Europe under a VASP registration in Ireland. So it's actually really, I'm really excited by what HashKey has been doing over the last 7 to 8 years of its history. I mean, one of the things that we really focused on was we believe that the industry, Web3, crypto, blockchain, it's here to stay. There's a lot of promise in the technology, but one of the blockers to institutional adoption over the last 4 to 5 years has been some of these kind of a regulated, licensed way for licensed financial institutions to get into the industry. So HashKey has really been a pioneer in trying to build this model in Asia, and we've been quite successful in Hong Kong. So today is really just designed to share with you, as Vietnam is really actively working on its licensing framework and its pilot for licensed exchanges. Today is just myself kind of sharing some of the lessons that I've learned and that we've learned in terms of the the value proposition of licensed exchanges and why it should matter to traders. So it's pretty interesting, right? We talk to a lot of people out there when they, the first thing, a lot of just like normal traders and normal users, when they think about licensed digital asset exchanges, on the left here, these are some of the common myths, right? People think, oh, it's a licensed exchange, it's too much like a bank, it's too restrictive, I can't trade what I want, there's no products, right? That's sometimes the common myths that people think about when they think about a licensed exchange. Actually, in reality, like one of the biggest values of having a licensed exchange in any country, in any market for users, is really this idea of trust, is creating a trusted platform for users to actually bring their money in and to trade and to know that their assets are safe. And I think there's really four pillars of trust in a licensed exchange that are quite common across Hong Kong, across Europe, across the US, and these are the things that really do matter to users. And I think in some of our conversations with traders, we found that these four pillars of trust actually help to dispel some of the myths around what it means to have a licensed exchange. And this presentation, I'll kind of go through each of these pillars, from asset protection, share a little bit more detail on that. How you actually implement asset protection, to reliable bank connectivity, why that matters in the fiat to crypto world, and talk a little bit about the value of third-party oversight, what it means. What's interesting on third-party oversight is a lot of the time when people think about centralized exchanges or centralized entities, in the blockchain and crypto world, that's a little bit, it's a little bit sensitive because people who believe in blockchain technology, one of the biggest values of decentralized technologies is that you don't have to trust, right? Because you have a lot of validators out there who are able to validate transactions, and you have verifiable trust, right? You have witnesses on all these different transactions, right? Kind of decentralized witnesses. What's interesting for licensed companies like ourselves in these regions is you don't have to trust us 100%. Right? You trust the platform that it does X, Y, and Z things, but then you also have third-party oversight of the platforms, right? The government has to, has oversight over the companies, and then also auditors have oversight of the companies, and the companies have to disclose a lot of things publicly. That's the value of third-party oversight, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the last one I think is very important. Fair and neutral markets. I think this is one of the things that a lot of traders in the market don't really get sometimes about the difference between the fairness in the fairness of the market in a licensed exchange and a unlicensed or unregulated exchange. So I'll share a little bit of some of our thoughts on why that should matter to users from some of the lessons that we've learned here. So just going to the first pillar, right, of asset protection, the first pillar of trust here. I think, this is, from our experience in operating licensed exchanges in Hong Kong, in Tokyo, in Singapore, and in Dubai, one of the things that we've seen is common is how you actually protect assets in a licensed exchange and why that's different and important for users. So no matter the licensing framework out there, generally in the top left is, there's a clear requirement on how you have to segregate the way in which you custody assets, right? Hot wallets, which are always online, versus the cold wallets, which are offline, and sometimes you have warm wallets. So actually forcing the exchange to separate its the assets that it holds on custody for users across more risky hot wallets to less risky cold wallets is an important area of protection. The top right quadrant, asset segregation, this is also very important in a post-FTX world, is every single licensed exchange out there that's licensed under certain frameworks, they are legally required to make sure that they don't take customer assets and use them as their own. And I think that's really, really important in a post-FTX world, because you don't want, in a situation where where there's a huge market downturn and something happens to the exchange, you don't want the exchange to not be able to, give you your assets back. So asset segregation is a huge element of asset protection. On the insurance side of things, I think that's one area where HashKey has been really, really a pioneer. I think we are, if I remember the statistics, we're actually one of the largest buyers of insurance on custody worldwide. And that's because in Hong Kong, we custody about, I think, $1.5 billion of assets. And there's requirements in Hong Kong to buy insurance on customer assets. So having insurance, insurance policies on the assets that you custody is also another part of the asset protection and that trust in licensed exchanges. And then obviously you have 24/7 monitoring. There's cybersecurity requirements that are actually part of a lot of these regulations. So one thing I think is also really important from a user's perspective is, if you look at all of the regions and countries worldwide that have regulatory frameworks for licensed exchanges, is if you don't have the licenses there, it's very hard to operate really reliable exchanges between fiat to crypto, right? The on-ramp to off-ramp. And I think, for a lot of users out there, a lot of users, I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room who, may use licensed exchanges, may use unlicensed exchanges. I think one of the things that we've seen a lot of customers and clients come to us and say, hey, HashKey, we love the protection and we love the trustiness of your platform. And you know what? We also like the fact that there's no uncertainty when it comes to being able to deposit fiat and withdraw fiat. So I think in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Tokyo, and then also in Dubai, we've had a lot of great feedback from customers that that mentioned that being a licensed exchange is really helpful for them to understand that there's reliable bank connectivity. So I think this is also in a world where TradFi and Web3 are converging, right? In a world where there's more and more institutional adoption, where financial institutions are integrating crypto, where stable coins are becoming more and more common, I think it becomes more and more important that you have reliable bank connectivity between the exchanges and between the fiat world. So this is what I was talking about a little bit with regards to third-party oversight. I think a big advantage from a user's perspective, from a customer's perspective, when you use a licensed exchange is you're actually able to verify, it gives you verifiable trust because you have regulators there and you have auditors who are actually checking the exchange and checking the platform to make sure that they're actually doing things. And regulators, government, and auditors, nobody's perfect, but having additional third-party witnesses or third-party auditors actually help reduce the likelihood of risks and help reduce the likelihood that things are going wrong, right? So you can never have 100% prevention of things going wrong, but in our belief and in my personal belief is that the more you have more eyes looking at a company and what they're doing, it kind of gives you a little bit more added protection, right? It's like, imagine you have a blockchain with only two validators. Maybe there's more, 2 or 3 validators. Maybe there's a higher chance that something could go, that there could be a malicious transaction or a malicious validation. Imagine, in the blockchain world, in some cases, the more nodes, the more validators, the more eyes on the blockchain, the less likelihood that there is for, malicious transactions to take place. So, in our view, the third pillar of trust here is this third-party oversight. Most licensed exchanges worldwide, whether it's Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, hopefully Vietnam in the future, if you're operating one of these platforms, it's not just it's not a trust me bro type of mentality. It's actually you have independent auditors, you have regulators who are actually checking things on a periodic basis to make sure that that the right things are being done. This one I think is also really interesting to think about. This fourth pillar of trust, which we believe that licensed exchanges, and this is a lesson that we've learned, is licensed exchanges actually provide a much more neutral, fair market for users because generally speaking, if you look at all the regulations in Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, Japan, there's very specific requirements to prevent the exchange and prevent the platform from taking information about customers' trading data or customers' trading positions, and in a conflict of interest way, taking that information and sharing it externally to trade against some of the users. So I think one interesting thing, I'm not sure if you guys paid attention to what's been happening in the market recently, but even in DeFi, right? So even on platforms like Hyperliquid, you had the case recently where a large trader, pseudonym James Wynn, was making huge trades, hundreds of millions of dollars of trades, and then people, because the blockchain is transparent, people are able to see the liquidation price of those traders, and it kind of that information causes people to try to hunt that liquidation price, and it's not really good for the trader. After that event happened, there was some people on Twitter who were commenting that some of the centralized exchanges out there, I won't name names, but there were some comments from Twitter in saying that even some of the centralized exchanges out there might be sharing some data about traders and things like that. So I think one thing that's really important for users when they use a licensed exchange is you have a better this fourth pillar, right? You have a better sense that this is a neutral market, this is a fair market, and that the employees of this platform are actually, there's a lot of access control restrictions, like principle of least privilege, these things that are preventing the internal staff from taking sensitive information and and potentially trading against it. So this is one thing that I think is this fourth pillar of trust that's really, really important to keep in mind. I think this is a pretty interesting metaphor, which is if you think about trust in a licensed exchange, it's one way to think about it from a trader's perspective is, what's more important to you, vitamins or medicine? And I think from my perspective, and from a lot of people's perspective, you go to a doctor, and the doctor will say, okay, if something goes wrong with your body, you can take this medicine. But a lot of the times, like some of the best health professionals out there, they want you to exercise, they want you to take vitamins in order to prevent something going wrong. So I think one perspective that we have on the value of licensed exchanges and some of the things that we've learned is that traders can take risks, right? Traders can take risks, they can speculate, they can be degens, but they should still stay healthy by having a sophisticated perspective on their own risk management. And I think from a risk management perspective, if you have an understanding of what's the difference in trust between different trading platforms, and you make a decision based on that, you can reduce a lot of counterparty risk as a trader, and prevent some risks and prevent some problems from happening in the future. So one interesting metaphor here is kind of the value of licensed exchanges. Is it's almost thinking about how you stay healthy and how you stay healthy as a trader, how you be a little bit more preventive and prevent a situation where something goes wrong and you have to take medicine to correct it. So to end here, because I know it's close to lunch, so this is the last slide. But to end here, just a few quick takeaways here. When you think about licensed exchanges, or some of the biggest lessons that we've learned as a company that is probably operating some of the most widest amount of licensed exchanges in all of Asia and in the Middle East. At the end of the day, trust is the most important product that a licensed exchange can create. And if you think about from a blockchain perspective, the protocol for delivering that trust product is this underlying safety, right? This underlying safety across asset protection, across the bank connectivity, across the oversight, and across the fairness in the market. So safety is really the protocol that delivers that product of trust. And I think reliable banking in a world where digital assets and traditional finance are starting to merge through stable coins and a number of other categories, having reliable banking ramps for users is probably one of the most key value adds of that licensed exchanges can bring. As I mentioned, like third-party oversight, the most important thing about that is that actually helps verify all this trust that exists in the platform. And from a trader's perspective, making sure that making sure you understand that licensed exchanges offer kind of a different type of credibly neutral, fair market. From my perspective, I think that can help traders, execute in a better environment. And I think as a last note, right, as a health tip for traders, I think prevention is better than reaction. So in terms of the value add that licensed exchanges can bring to traders and users and to a local economy, it's better to prevent problems from happening in the future by trading and having trusted licensed exchanges that can offer that protection in an infrastructure for users. So with that, thanks for everyone's time, and hopefully this was interesting and valuable. And feel free to drop me a note if you want to keep in touch or talk about any of these topics. Thanks, everyone.